Fairy Tale Friday. A little less conversation. Once upon a time, there was an evil scientist named Ben, who spent his days attaching bear heads to sharks, capturing tornadoes in bottles, and mixing mind control potions so powerful they could make upbeat, guitar-strumming youth group ministers leap to their deaths from craggy cliffs. But there was no potion he could mix that would simulate love, and this was the source of his woe. So he ventured into the wasteland of humanity, and selected a wife, Pam. And everything was all right. For a while. But when his evil friends came over, Pam was there to remind him that evenings were for cuddling, not abominations. When flogging his hunchbacked assistant, it was hard to maintain a menacing composure when he had to knock a doily off the hump first. While he worked, she was there at his shoulder, reminding him that the lawn was littered with dead ministers, shattered guitars, and decomposing, headless bears. And at night, when the castle was dark and quiet, and the guns in the turrets had all been loaded, and the bears were circling in the blackness outside, and all he wanted was to settle down with barely legal bug jugs or animal-human hybrid tail, she was there, talking. Always talking. Her voice was a constant nagging drone, and in time, he developed a dark spot over the vision in his right eye, which hovered like a little black sun. He named it Pam. After a long day, he dropped into his recliner and closed his eyes, but just as the blissful detachment from consciousness was within his grasp, Pam's voice broke in, to remind him to clean up all those heads in jars, stacked up by the door. And as his eyes slammed open, he had an idea. The next day, while he worked, the smiling head of his wife grinned at him, from a jar on his shelf. She smiled at him, while he grafted beards onto hairless albino monkeys, and she smiled from her seat beside his recliner at night as he gazed at Mad Genius Quarterly Centerfold, a bulging and pulsating mass of buttocks and breasts topped with a marvelous human head. And everything was all right. For a while, but after some time, he began to second-guess himself. He remembered with fondness the cloying warmth of her loving concern in her pooper. He was conflicted. He got down on his evil knees, and prayed for advice, because this is what scientists do. And wouldn't you know it? A voice began to speak to him, and it was the voice of Bob, which said, "Ben, which is better? A regular bear? Or a bear that can breathe underwater?" Ben knew the answer was obvious. And which is more pleasing? A minister cheerfully strumming an acoustic guitar for wide-eyed, singing children, or one smashed to pulp on a ridge of jagged rocks? Again, Ben did not hesitate in his answer. "Slack favors the imaginative," said Bob. "You're the kind of guy who knows when a woman needs her head in a jar. Go with your gut, and take the best out of all the creatures you subdue." For some people, it's natural to be unnatural. Ben knew what to do. So from that day on, Ben had two jars on his shelf, one with a smiling head, and the other with the waiting pooper, and he made great use of both for the rest of his days, and lived slackfully ever after. The end. Happy Friday.